The summer sun slammed down on Maplewood Avenue, turning every inch of asphalt into a sizzling griddle. 11-year-old Emily Vargas and her neighbor, 12-year-old Marcus Lee, trudged along the sidewalk, each clutching a canvas tote half full of lemonade and battered comic books. Sweat trickled down Marcus's dark curls, and Emily swatted at the back of her neck, as if shooing away invisible flies. "I swear this summer's just a tease," Marcus muttered, wiping his brow. "Feels like school's already started." Emily kicked at a pebble. "Maybe we'll still find something fun today." She squinted ahead. "Did you hear that?" A soft, musical ding-ding drifted around the corner. Too sweet to be a lawnmower. They froze. Ice cream truck. Marcus guessed, though it wasn't Saturday. They turned onto Elm Street and gasped. Parked in front of Mrs. Patterson's hedge was an old-fashioned yellow truck with flickering neon stripes along the roof and a polished bell perched on top. The service window stood open and a polished Kachink echoed as the truck's interior light blinked on. Stepping out was a man whose uniform might have come straight from a 1950s postcard. Starched white jacket and pants, a perfectly tied bow tie, and shoes so shiny they gleamed in the sun. His eyes, however, were pale, almost glowing, and they settled on Emily and Marcus with unsettling calm. "Good afternoon," he said, voice smooth as melting caramel. "I'm Mr. Sorbet, your neighborhood ice cream man. Care to sample today's special flavors?" He held out 2 small cones. One swirled deep purple. The other glowed a brilliant red. Emily felt her heart stall. "Midnight berry," he explained, offering her the purple one. "A blend so rich it chills the soul." Marcus took the red cone. "And screaming strawberry," Mr. Sorbet added, "for those who crave a thrill." Emily sniffed her cone. Warm blackberry sweetness rose in the air, and something else, a faint tang like mint. She lifted it to her lips. Marcus tasted his first. His eyes widened. "Wow!" Emily's tongue tingled as she bit down. The flavor exploded, sweet, tart, and unbelievably cold. Like the inside of a freezer. She staggered back a half step. Mr. Sorbet tipped his hat. "Enjoy," he said. With a soft ding, the engine rumbled and the truck rolled away, its neon stripes pulsing as if breathing. Emily and Marcus stared after it until the bell faded into the distance. Then, without a word, they scrambled down the sidewalk to Emily's driveway and tossed their empty wrappers into a bin. Marcus licked his fingers. That was intense. Emily shivered, despite the heat, and icy. She glanced down at her shadow, stretched impossibly tall across the concrete. Marcus's shadow flickered oddly, too, as if a second figure lurked behind him. "Let's go inside," Emily said, voice tight. Inside her house, the kitchen fan whirred. Her mother called, "Lunch, dear?" But Emily could only nod. Her tongue still tingled, and each bite of peanut butter sandwich felt muted, flat. That night, Emily lay in bed listening for the bell's echo. When she closed her eyes, she tasted midnight berry again. The same electric cold that stole her breath, and heard a whisper too soft to catch. Sleep came on trembling legs, carrying her into dreams painted purple and red, and always haunted by that tinkling bell. Emily woke the next morning to the sensation of something scraping at the back of her mind. She lay still under her pink comforter, listening to the steady hum of the ceiling fan. But in the quiet, she heard a faint ding echoing from somewhere far away. Her tongue felt odd, too, still numb along the sides, as though it carried a memory of frostbite. She slipped out of bed and padded downstairs in socks. Her mother was flipping pancakes, the kitchen glowing warm and golden. Emily poured herself a glass of orange juice, but each swallow tasted flat, like something essential had been drained away. At the bus stop, Marcus was leaning against a signpost, arms crossed. His usual easy grin was gone. He held his lunch bag at arm's length, as if wary. "I didn't sleep," he confessed. "Kept hearing the bell in my dreams." Emily offered him a weak smile. "Me too." She gingerly touched her tongue. "And my taste buds feel off." He winced, pressing a fingertip to his lips. Mine still burned from the screaming strawberry. They boarded the regular school bus and sat at the back. But the moment the doors shut, the bell's ding seemed to reverberate through the metal frame. Marcus's shadow on the floor writhed as though alive. Emily stretched and twisted beyond her seat, folding it on itself. She shivered. Inside the classroom, Mrs. Daniels spoke in a calm drone, but Emily could barely focus. Every time she blinked, she saw a flash of neon lights through her eyelids and the faint echo of laughter, too high-pitched to be human. She caught her reflection in the window. Her eyes were rimmed with violet, as though someone had traced them with marker. At lunch, word spread that two of their classmates had vanished overnight. Tommy Brooks and Jenna Lee, both known for their love of ice cream, simply hadn't shown up. The principal's announcement over the PA hitching voice caused a ripple of fear across the cafeteria. Emily and Marcus exchanged a grim look. They slipped out of the crowded lunchroom under the pretense of getting water and wound their way down a side hallway. "The truck must have been back," Marcus whispered, "and it took them." Emily stopped at the end of the wing and pointed to shiny spots along the floor. Tiny puddles of melting slush that glimmered pink in the fluorescent light. She knelt. Look, screaming strawberry. Her finger hovered above the sticky puddle that hadn't dried. She flicked the corner of her sleeve through it. The sticky residue clung to the fabric. He frowned. They couldn't have eaten this and gone normal. He shone his phone flashlight around. There, tire marks. Along the linoleum, two shallow grooves scored the floor and led toward the exit. They followed them to the front doors. Outside, the tracks continued across the concrete pad, then faded into asphalt. Marcus crouched, inspecting the ground. "That looks like a delivery truck, not a bus." Emily's heart lurched when she saw the crushed cone near the curb, melting faster than the pavement could absorb it. She picked it up. It sagged in her hand, still oozing bright red. "We need to find where the truck goes at night." That afternoon, after the last bell, they hurried back along the tracks, which led to a narrow alley behind Marlene's bakery. The alley was silent, littered with discarded boxes and weathered crates. The tracks turned here into two parallel lines in the cracked concrete. "They're fresh," Emily said. "Someone drove right through." Marcus's flashlight beam caught something painted on the brick wall at eye level. A sugar, pink swirl, an ice cream cone with dripping scoops for eyes, and beneath, the single word hungry scrawled in gummy letters. Emily pressed her palm to the cone's painted eye. The paint was sticky and cool, like melted gelato. That's exactly like the symbol on the recipe book cover. Her mind spun back to graffiti they glimpsed in her garage that first night. The same dripping cone emblem. She shivered. "Let's warn someone," Marcus urged, turning toward the bakery's back door. They slipped inside without knocking. Marlene looked up from a rack of pastries. Flour dusted her apron and hair. "You too look like you've seen a ghost." Emily breathed. "Mr. Sorbet's ice cream truck. Other kids are disappearing. We found his tracks and the symbol." She held out the melting cone and the photo of the wall. Marlene's face paled. "Sebastian Coldwell symbol," she whispered. "He was the original vendor in '78. Town legend says he made deals with." Emily sank onto a stool. "We need to dig into his history." Marlene nodded and grabbed her car keys. "I'll drive you to the library. We'll find out what happened to Coldwell and how to stop Mr. Sorbet." Inside the bakery's warm back room, Emily and Marcus sank into chairs. Marlene brewed tea. The steam swirled with a faint lavender scent. "We'll start at the Graymore Public Library's archives," Marlene said, pulling out her phone. "They have clippings on Sebastian Coldwell's carnival and his obituary." Marcus exhaled, voice tight. "Let's do it tonight." Emily nodded. "We have to know what those flavors do and what they cost." Marlene poured tea into mugs and set them before the kids. "Then we'll plan how to face Mr. Sorbet before any more children vanish." Emily, Marcus, and Marlene slipped through the back entrance of the Graymore Public Library at 7 o'clock that evening. The circulation desk had closed for the day, but Mrs. Patel, always a night owl, beckoned them into a hushed anteroom lined with filing cabinets. "Special archives," Marlene reminded her in a low voice. Mrs. Patel entered a code into the keypad, and the heavy door swung open to reveal rows of box clippings, ledgers, and photographs. A single lamp burned on a long table in the center. "Be gentle," Mrs. Patel cautioned as she withdrew a folder marked 1978 Events and Exhibits. These documents are fragile. Emily's heart thumped as she peeled back yellowed newspaper pages. Marcus leaned in beside her, shining his flashlight across the type. The first clipping bore the headline Carnival Delights abruptly shuts amid child illnesses, dated August 1978. Marlene read aloud. Dozens of children reportedly fainted during Sebastian Coldwell's final carnival night after sampling his ice cream delights. Health inspectors closed the fairgrounds when 47 local youths fell ill, many suffering vivid nightmares and unexplained chills. The vendor, Mr. Coldwell, vanished before authorities could question him. His cart was found abandoned by Lake Wisteria at dawn. Emily's breath caught. Vanished, and his cart just sits there? Or he came back, Marcus muttered, remembering Mr. Sorbet. They turned the page and found black and white photographs. Rows of striped tents, Ferris wheel gondolas, and in the foreground, an elaborately painted ice cream cart. Its canopy was gone, but the side panels still showed a smiling cone draped in jewels. A small plaque beneath read, Coldwell's Carnival, Summer 1978. That's his cart, Emily whispered. She traced a finger over the grainy image. Look at the scoops. Same design as Mr. Sorbet's truck. Marlene tapped a stamp in the margin. See Exhibit 1979. She closed the folder. There's more in the next drawer. They moved to a row labeled Obituaries and Notices 1978 to 1979. Inside, Marcus found a funeral announcement for Sebastian A. Coldwell, age 42, describing his passing on September 2nd, 1978, under undetermined circumstances. No mention of illness or accident, just a small photograph of a smiling man in a striped vendor's uniform. Marlene frowned. No cause of death. That's suspicious. Emily scavenged through the clipping, then gasped as she spotted a tiny letter to the editor, reprinted from a local parenting magazine. My daughter Lorraine grew pale after tasting Coldwell's Midnight Mint. It was like eating ice and dreams combined. She's been bedridden with feverish sleep ever since. What was in that recipe? A chill settled over them. Emily shut the folder. Nightmares, she whispered, just like ours. They spent the next 20 minutes cross-referencing names of ill children, tracing every mention of haunted flavor. Finally, Marlene produced a Legendex, Exhibit 1979, Carnival memorabilia on loan to library. There should be posters and perhaps the vendor's ledger, she said. But the item we want, the recipe book, was never returned. That means it could still be out there, Marcus muttered. Emily tapped her notebook. But we know how Mr. Sorbet is connected to Coldwell. Now we need to find someone who actually worked with him. Marlene nodded. Mr. Jenkins, the retired fairground conductor. He ran the rides back then, remembers Coldwell well. After closing time, they piled into Marlene's sedan and drove to the old fairgrounds on the town's edge. The empty midway stood silent under a single floodlight. Rusted ride skeletons creaked in the breeze. At the maintenance shack, an elderly man leaned on a walker. Mr. Jenkins? Marlene asked. He looked up, eyes sharp as day. I used to run the carousel. You want stories, come inside. They followed him into a cluttered office where faded ride posters lined the walls. He produced a leather case filled with yellowed notebooks. Coldwell bought every flavor idea I had, mint, berry, cherry. But he kept his real recipe secret. He tapped his temple, called it Daily Sombers. Said he'd whispered to something old as ice to bring flavors to life. Emily exchanged a glance with Marcus. Something old as ice? Jenkins's fingers traced the notebook cover. Legend was, he made a pact with Wraith of Winter, a spirit that thrives in frost and dreams. He opened to a page with crude runes beside an ice crystal sketch. This bound the spirit to his ice cream. Kids who ate it felt its cold whispers long after. Marlene leaned forward. You know about the counter charm? Jenkins's eyes softened. He scribbled it at the back of his recipe book. By crystal scoop and salted rim, we purge the fear that clings within. With lavender's gentle breath we bind. The spirit's hunger now resigned. Emily wrote it down furiously. Where's the book now? The conductor frowned. The carnival shut down after the illnesses. They locked the book in Coldwell's farmhouse cellar before burying it under floorboards, so no one can make more of his dark recipes. Marcus gulped. So we need to get to Coldwell's old house. Jenkins nodded. It stands empty on Maple Ridge Road. Once you find the cellar hatch, you'll know where to look. They thanked him and hurried back to the car, hearts pounding with both dread and hope. In the passenger seat, Marlene flipped through her notes. Now we have the counter charm, she said. We know the incantation and where to find the book. Emily clutched her notebook. We'll prepare the sorbet as he wrote it. Salt, silver scoop lavender bud, and serve it to Mr. Sorbet. Marcus set his jaw. Then we bind him, just like he bound the wraith. Marlene started the engine. Tomorrow night, under a full moon, we go to that farmhouse. We bring the book, the ingredients, and enough courage to face whatever's left behind. They drove off beneath the stars, the old fairground receding into darkness. Emily looked out the window, tasting the bitter promise of midnight berry on her tongue, and already fearing the chill of what was to come. As dusk settled over the city park, Emily, Marcus, and Marlene huddled behind a row of tall hedges that separated the children's playground from the winding walking path. The last of the day's light glowed rosily on the grass, and the air held a faint chill, a promise of the night sorcery. In Emily's backpack lay De Lis Sombres, the ancient leather-bound recipe book. Beside it, small cloth pouches of coarse sea salt, a handful of dried lavender buds, and 2 polished silver spoons. Marlene carried a copper pot, already half filled with spring water. They'll be here any minute, Marcus whispered, scanning the empty path. Last time, the bell tinkled before the truck emerged. Emily swallowed, heart pounding, and Jenna's with him. She brushed a lock of hair from her face. We have to save her. 15 minutes earlier, Jenna Lee, one of the students who'd vanished, had reappeared that morning at Marcus's bus stop, eyes dull and distant. She giggled at Emily's question, "Why aren't you in class?" and said only, "I want strawberry." Then she'd wandered off toward the park, humming an unfamiliar tune. "Are you sure she's okay?" Marlene asked, voice low. She seemed changed. Emily nodded, though her stomach twisted. The moment I saw her, I knew she's under Sorbet's spell. They tightened their grip on their silver spoons and ticked off last-minute checks. Pockets for salt, lavender oil vial clipped to Emily's jacket, and the scripture from the recipe book memorized. By crystal scoop and salted rim, we purge the fear that clings within. With lavender's gentle breath we bind. The spirit's hunger now resigned. A soft ding drifted from the cobblestone path ahead. The 3 froze. Marcus peeked through an opening in the hedge. The ice cream truck glided into view, its neon stripes pulsing like a heartbeat. The driver's silhouette sat rigid behind the wheel. "There she is," Marlene murmured, pointing. Jenna stepped from the truck's open service door, pale-faced, blood-red lips curved in a slow smile. She held a half-melted cone. Each step she took, the cone dripped onto the path, bright pink rivulets smoking as they hit the cobbles. Emily's breath caught. "Jenna!" She stepped into view, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Wait, he'll see us." Mr. Sorbet lifted his gloved hand and rang the tiny bell perched beside the window. Ding, ding, ding. Each ring more insistent than the last. Marcus's own chain of silver wind chimes strained to chime in response. The bell's music rippled across the park, and with each echo, the playground lights flickered. Jenna turned toward the bell, blinking. Her eyes shone like the truck's neon stripes. She took another step. Emily squeezed her spoon. "We go now." The 3 dashed across the grass, scattering startled pigeons. Salt tinkled in their pockets. Marlene's copper pot clinked in her hand. As they approached, Mr. Sorbet stepped down from the cab, bow tie stiff, eyes of pale vanilla fixed on them. "Good evening," he purred, voice impossibly sweet. "You're just in time for dessert." He raised the cone Jenna held. Its swirl of pink dripped smoke. Jenna swayed forward, head lolling. Emily stood her ground. "Not today." She held out her silver spoon, its bowl catching the last glint of daylight. By crystal scoop and salted rim, Mr. Sorbet's lips curved into a grin. Such potent words. He stepped aside, revealing the truck's interior. Lamps aglow, freezers humming. But inside the truck, dozens of children sat frozen on benches carved to look like giant waffle cones. Their eyes were empty, their mouths slack, as though the life had been melted from their bodies. Emily's chest tightened. We do this now. She drew the slip of parchment from the recipe book and recited, voice trembling but clear. By crystal scoop and salted rim, we purge the fear that clings within. She cracked open the pot and sprinkled salt across the tip of Jenna's cone. The pink smoke hissed and writhed, but Mr. Sorbet did not intervene. Continue, he said softly. Marcus pressed a silver spoon to Jenna's lips. She tasted it, eyes widening with sudden clarity. The other children murmur moved, eyelids fluttering. Emily uncapped the lavender oil and held it just beneath Jenna's nose. The sweet herbal scent washed over her. Jenna's knees buckled. Emily caught her in a swift embrace as she fell forward. Conclude the binding, Marlene called, reading from the same parchment. Emily and Marcus leaned close, their voices melding. With lavender's gentle breath we bind, the spirit's hunger now resigned. A sudden gale whipped through the park, the neon stripes on the truck strobing white-blue. Freezers rattled. The children in cone benches moaned as though waking from a long, vivid dream. Mr. Sorbet stepped back into the shadows. Emily freed Jenna and caught her arm. Are you okay? Jenna blinked, confusion flickering across her face. What happened? Marcus knelt and scooped up a handful of melting pink drips. The smoke condensed into a single crystal that shattered under his fingers. Mr. Sorbet emerged from the shadows, taller now, thinner. A gaunt figure with skin like spun sugar, eyes gleaming like shards of ice. You dare bind me? His voice crackled with frost. Emily squared her shoulders. You bound us to your flavors. Today we bind you. Mr. Sorbet's form blurred and fractured, as though the boundary between liquid and solid was failing. Then break me if you can. He lifted a gloved hand, and the ground trembled. Salt spilled across the grass, forming a ring around the trio. Marlene tossed lavender buds into the center, the petals lit with pale flame. Jenna and the other children stumbled from their benches, clear-eyed but trembling. Emily stepped into the ring, silver spoon in hand. By crystal scoop and salted rim, we purged the fear that clings within. Her voice wavered as Mr. Sorbet's form coalesced into a jagged silhouette. Marcus raised his chime. Ding! He struck it 3 times deliberately. The clear note rang out. The truck's neon strobe slowed, then flickered. Mr. Sorbet's shoulders heaved. He opened his mouth in a silent scream and outpoured swirling mist, frosting white vapor laced with berry-red streaks. In a final desperate act, Emily plunged a silver spoon into the mist and lifted it like a chalice. With lavender's gentle breath we bind, the spirit's hunger now resigned. The mist recoiled, spiraling into the spoon. The air went cold, so cold Emily's breath froze. Then, with a shattering clatter like broken glass, the vapor collapsed inward. The spoon shattered, and the mist vanished in a puff of scented smoke. Silence fell, so complete it rang in their ears. The playground lights stabilized. The bell atop the truck fell silent. Mr. Sorbet's form winked out like a broken projection, leaving only the empty truck and its silent freezers humming. Emily sank to grass, hands shaking. Marcus dropped to one knee beside her. Jenna clutched her hand, eyes wide with dawning awareness. Marlene stood back, tears in her eyes as she watched the defeated truck. I think he's gone, Emily whispered. Marcus touched the license plate fragment in his pocket. 5807 from the Phantom Bus days, now joined by a small silver bell shard that had fallen from the truck's canopy. It worked. Jenna rose unsteadily. I feel cold, but better. Her gaze drifted to the children emerging from their waffle cone benches, blinking at dawn's light. Marlene gathered them close. Let's get everyone home, and let the sun finish what we started. They walked past the frozen truck into the parking lot just as the first stars receded. The bell shard glinted in Emily's hand, her proof, her talisman. Emily paused and glanced back. In the dim glow of an overhead lamp, the truck's neon stripes pulsed one last time, then winked out, the yellow paint fading into the night's darkness. They left the park together, 5 friends bound by the cold magic of midnight berry, screaming strawberry, and the counterchar that had broken Mr. Sorbet's spell. The first rays of dawn painted the park in soft gold when Emily returned with Marcus and Marlene. Jenna trotted behind, clutching her lunchbox like a talisman. The picnic tables where they'd faced Mr. Sorbet lay empty and silent, the grass still damp with dew. No sign of the truck, Marcus said, scanning the far edge of the pavement where the yellow paint had once glowed. The bell atop the canopy was gone. No jingling, no engine hum, just the distant chatter of early joggers along the path. Emily crouched by the asphalt where puddles of colored slush had formed. Now the spots were gone, as if never spilled. She pressed her palm to the cool ground. It disappeared completely. Marlene nodded, voice thick. The sun's magic finishes what the sorbet began. I believe we're safe. Jenna exhaled, relief flooding her pale features. I can taste real strawberries again. She licked her lips thoughtfully. They walked slowly toward the playground. The giant waffle cone benches had returned to ordinary stone slabs. The frozen figures of the other children were gone, replaced by the usual swings and slides. A family strolled past, unaware of last night's horrors. As they neared the truck's former parking spot, Emily spotted a small metal glint half buried in the grass. She knelt and brushed away dew, a jagged shard of silver, the bell plunger from Mr. Sorbet's canopy, stamped with a tiny emblem of a dripping ice cream cone. Marcus leaned down. Keep that safe. She slipped it into her pocket. Marlene glanced at her watch. We should let their parents know the children are unhurt. She opened her phone to make calls. Emily nodded, though her mind raced. The ancient recipe book still rested in her backpack, its pages closed but unread. The lavender oil vial and silver spoons rattled softly inside. She dug her hand into the bag, feeling the reassuring solidity of their tools, and something else. A small square box, tucked beneath her water bottle, her name scrawled across the lid in looping pink script. Vanishing Vanilla. She frowned. She didn't remember packing it. Ing. Marcus asked, watching her face. You okay? She held up the box. I didn't bring this. Marlene looked up from her calls. Where did you find it? Emily's stomach clenched. It was in my backpack this morning. She twisted the lid. It popped off with the softest, as though exhaling. Inside lay a single scoop of pale cream, untouched, glistening with tiny crystals. The scent was faint, cold sugar, vanilla, and something deeper, like distant laughter. Jenna's eyebrows rose. That flavor, we didn't make this. Marcus stepped closer, squinting, and it's not fully melted. Emily's heart hammered. She recognized the name, Vanishing Vanilla, listed on Mr. Sorbet's menu but never sampled, a flavor rumored to erase memories, to make you disappear. She glanced at Marlene. Marlene folded the recipe book, closed and rose. We thought we'd stopped him, but he slipped this into your bag. Emily's breath caught. So it's not over. She held the spoon that came with the sandwich set, silver smooth and cold. Her hand trembled. Jenna and Marcus watched her, worry in their eyes. Marlene placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. You're not alone. We'll be ready. Emily thought of Mr. Sorbet's pale eyes, the wraith-like negotiation between ice and spirit. She pressed a spoon to her lips and hesitated, but then shook her head. Not yet, she whispered, closing the box and tucking it away. I don't want to taste it. The air rippled as a lone bird took flight, its cries sharp against the morning calm. Emily slipped the box into her backpack pocket, beneath the recipe book and beside the silver bell shard. They made their way out of the park, each step carrying them from last night's nightmare and toward the coming day's ordinary promise. But Emily knew the bell would toll again in her dreams, and the taste of vanishing vanilla would echo at the edge of her thoughts. She glanced back once more at the empty clearing. A single patch of sun-dried grass remained more vibrant than the rest, as though soaked in melted cream. Emily let the moment linger, then turned, following her friends toward home, steeling herself for whichever bell would ring next.